So let me share the screen here. You guys can see that we are on question 864, and we are discussing fatalism. So in the past couple of weeks, we discussed fatalism. We already went over a lot of discussion on it. It's important as a reminder, and all of you that are here were here last week, so you remember that we discussed fatalism in terms of that it applies mainly to what happens in our physical life, our moral choices. There is no fatalism. We always have the free will to choose, to make choices. So fatalism, it applies also at the big events of our lives. It doesn't apply on the small things that happen on our daily lives. So you know, the time we were born, the time we die, some major events like accidents, diseases that may happen in our lives may be considered fatalism, but again, there is never a moral aspect of fatalism. So because we've been studying this for 2 weeks, I asked Zoraida, and we have 4 questions left. I asked Zoraida to just read the last 4 questions, and we go through all of them together. So once again, we are on question 864, okay?
Okay. While there are individuals to whom faith is unkind, there are others who seem to be favored because they succeed in everything they do. To what is this to be attributed? In many cases, they know how to best manage their lives and actions, but it may also be a type of trial. People are intoxicated by success. They put their trust in their destiny, and in the end, they pay for these successes by severe setbacks, which greater forethought would have enabled them to avoid. How can we account for the luck that sometimes favors people under circumstances where neither will nor intelligence have a role, such as gambling, for example? Some spirits have chosen specific types of pleasure beforehand, and the luck that favors them is a temptation. Those who win as human beings lose as spirits, since such luck is a trial for their pride and greed. Is this the faith that seems to shape our material destinies, a result of our free will? You yourself have chosen your trial. The more severe it is, and the better you bear it, the higher you are elevated. Those who spend their physical lives selfishly enjoying wealth and happiness are cowardly spirits who remain stationary. The number of those who are unfortunate is much greater in your world than those who are fortunate, because spirits generally choose the trial that would be most useful to them. They too clearly see the futility of your splendor and pleasures. Besides, the most fortunate life is always more or less troubled, if only by the absence of sorrow. Where does the expression born under the lucky star originate? From an old superstition that connected the stars with the destiny of each human being, a metaphor that some people are foolish enough to take literally.
Thanks, Zoraida. So there is one question there that Renato asked last week, right? Why some people are lucky to win the lottery? If you know, what purpose does it serve? And on the other hand, the first question: why are people that apparently have no luck at all? That everything that wrong that can happen happens to them. The spirits tell us one thing that's important is that we try to we try to attribute everything to fate or to destiny. And actually, a lot of things, most of the things that happen in our physical life are consequence of our own physical, our decisions, our actions, the law of action and reaction. It is, of course, we discussed about this when we can make decisions on when we are in the spiritual world on our next incarnation. We are going to try to make decisions that better help us move forward, progress, and some of these decisions may be that that we will face some obstacles in life or some benefits in life that will serve us a purpose, and the purpose is to try patience and resignation, to try to control our greed and our selfishness. So everything happens for a reason. Nothing happens by chance. So if someone wins the lottery, there is a reason for that. We know that is a very difficult trial, and we know that most people that win big prizes end up losing their wealth very, not very, but reasonably quickly. I read somewhere that in terms of happiness, people that win the lottery, after 6 months, they are back to the level of happiness that they had, or happiness or unhappiness that they had before they won. So it lasts 6 months only. So what we do with it, and what we do with everything that happens in our lives, is based on our choices. We have to make the wise choices that help us move forward and progress. Our free will is the important part of it, of the decisions we make, and the moral choices are always based on our free will. So we can resist or not to temptations. We can listen to the guidance of the spirits, the good spirits, or we can listen to the influences of the less evolved spirits and make our own choices. So it is important to remember that we have our free will, and that is the most important thing. And with our free will, we can even extend our physical life or reduce according to the decisions we make. So the fatality of the physical death, it exists. We all know that we are all going to go back to the spiritual world, but the time we are going back to the spiritual world, it can be changed. There is an estimate. It can be changed. We can act on it according to our free will. And finally, the born under a lucky star, it's really an expression that we created. It's we like to put the responsibility of things that happen to us to others. So if someone is lucky, we say they were born under a lucky star, without really understanding and knowing everything that happens to the person, or what are the reasons for those things to happen to this person. So we have to be very careful not to start prejudging and making quick conclusions on what we see happening to other people, right? I was reading this week, and I think you guys are going to study very soon, I think on Tuesday, a beautiful speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1957 that he talks about forgiveness. It's wonderful, so beautiful. And and he talks about it, about forgiveness is our own choice. It's our free will. We can either forgive or we can carry on with the hatred that hurts us more than it hurts those that we hate. So, Renato, I know you had a question there. So, are you okay with what I said, or do you need more?
I need to digest that.
Yeah, that's a challenging discussion, because when we talk about fatalism, we talk about free will, we talk about our life, our physical life. There are some things that that we look at them and we think, what is the logic behind it, right? Why? And but we have to accept that we cannot understand everything. Even if we study and we try to understand the whole concept of our reincarnation as a whole, there are things that we are not going to be able to understand, and that we will understand eventually one day. But you know, some things like that are more difficult, right, to understand sometimes. You know, why him or her, and why not me, right? Winning the lottery, winning the 320 million.
No, I always say, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I found it, this is Louisa, very interesting, the answer by the spirits in the 864, when they mention people who have a lot of success. And he says that it may also be a trial, because you can get very arrogant and, and very self-assured that you are good, that you're the best. And so it could be a trial also. You see what I mean, right?
Yes. It's a very good point, Luisa, because they say it clearly here, people are intoxicated by success. And it's very difficult not to be intoxicated. We see people that become famous and then lose or not lose become less famous as time goes by, actors, actresses, musicians, and they end up losing themselves in drugs, in drinking, in plastic surgeries to try to regain their appearances. So it's hard when you are contaminated by this success to go back to a more normal life. It's very difficult. It's like when when you were never rich, you don't know. So, and then you become rich, and then you lose everything, and people, they cannot get used to not being rich. They struggle mightily, right? Very few people have the ability to deal with big changes in their lives in both directions, upwards or downwards, right?
Exactly.
Well,
yes.
The question 866 talks about, as I understand, that for the ones who have a harder trial, a harder life, in the end we get it better. And for the ones who are happy, enjoying happiness, and there is this word selfishly, right? So enjoying wealth and happiness, they have the tendency to be stationary. And at least from my experience in my family, part of my family were spiritist, and the other half was vehemently against it, because of, I think this language can be put in many different ways. right? So if you are enjoying life, you are being successful, if you are happy, and then you are not progressing spiritually. And it doesn't make sense to me that way, because I don't understand. And I think we always talk about that in the meetings. We are not supposed to come here and be unhappy, right? I mean, we are trying to be happy and live a good life and progress. But in several questions throughout the whole book, they always point out that too much success or happiness or wealth is not good. And for the ones who are struggling is way better. So I understand here is like, it's better if you come here for a very hard trial than to succeed in your, in the life here.
The key word there, Danny, is selfishly, and you mentioned it. Mm-hmm. So those who spend their physical lives selfishly enjoying wealth and happiness. Mm-hmm. If you remove the word selfishly, then it can be what you said. But those that live in their own world of wealth and happiness for themselves, thinking only about themselves and those close to them, are spirits that will remain stationary. Not stationary 100%, because we know that never happens. There is always some sort of progress, but very little. So what they are trying to say here, yes, the majority of us in the world are less fortunate, because the best way for us to progress is to have some struggles. Otherwise, we become very lazy, and we are going to see this in the next item, Foreknowledge of the Future. So you brought a very good point, but it's very important to understand here that a spirit like Warren Buffett, it's not remaining stationary. He's the second, third, or fourth largest, richest person in the world. But the work that he's been doing to help those that have less and to help humanity progress means that he's enjoying wealth and happiness to the benefit of others. So you can see someone like him progressing. Those that live in their own mansions and thinking about themselves and treating others with as inferiors or as the rest, are the ones that are going to struggle in the future. It's cause and consequence. Now, all of us, and we discussed this in class, right? Why the majority of the world is not wealthy? Because if most of us were wealthy, then it would be easy to distribute wealth amongst those that were not, and we all would become stationary, because we are still, as human beings, lazy. We don't want to make an effort if we don't have to. We need the carrot in front of us to move forward, right? So that's why most of us need the carrot, and most of us need to not have, so we can chase it. And again, it's the important thing here is, how do we face what is in front of us independently? If we are rich, poor, healthy, with some sort of disease, the faith, resignation, and without charity there is no salvation. The tenet of Spiritism is what really makes us move forward, right? Progress. Otherwise, we're going to make life difficult for us in the future. We may live a theoretically happy life, but we know that this life is only a small grain of sand in the infinite of our existences. So we have to, it's a difficult concept, because we live in a physical world, and it's much easier for us to look around and to see all the injustices that happen around us, and to think where is the logic in God's law. But we have to try to elevate ourselves above the physical life, look at us and at us as eternal spirits, and look at the trials and tribulations that we are all going through, with the understanding that everything that we are facing is an opportunity for us to progress. If we are going to take advantage of this opportunity or not is on each one of us, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, I just quickly mentioned the experience in my family, because I think this language can be easily twisted.
Yeah.
And it was like I heard so many debates about, oh, you know, I want to live life here and not, you know, think about going back and being better there. I want to be better here. Mm-hmm. Because why do I have to shut the door to wealth or happiness or enjoying life? Because I think this word, as we said, selfishly enjoying it is the key, but that can be easily dropped and be in the conversation. And I think this can also apply to other religions as well. Like, you know, you are trying to improve and do your work here, but it can be seen as like, I want to be happy here. Why do I'm going to plan when I go back to the spiritual world? When I go there, I see, you know, I see that then I will live it, right?
Yeah, but again, the spirits tell us relative happiness is possible in this world, and that's what we should try to achieve. Relative happiness is when we live within our means, with peace of mind, with faith and resignation. That's the target. Of course, us all being imperfect spirits, we struggle with this concept. We know it, understand it, but we have a hard time putting in practice. It's where we are in our evolutionary path, but it is it is there. The spirits tell us we can be happy in this world, not perfect happiness, but relative happiness. But the understanding of that happiness and the acceptance of their happiness, again, it's on each one of us, right?
Yeah, just sharing where I'm struggling. Because, you know, unfortunately, I always made a mistake to try to make sense of things. It doesn't happen that way, right? Because when I look up, for example, because I think that's what the question I asked last week. For example, since this is a planet, you know, we are switching from trying expiation to regeneration. So, and if you have, you know, spirits on the other side that's trying to make us fail and everything. So that's why they throw at us, you know, situations where you have power, because they know if they give us power, we're going to fail. They give us, you know, opportunity to, I don't know, use drugs. We were just studying about sex, and there's so many vices that, you know, it put us to these trials and expansions that's, you know, the planet was, so we fail. So when you look on that prism of, you know, spirits trying to, you know, make us fail, they throw at us exactly where we fail. And we know at our level of evolution, if you give us money, we're going to fail. And it seems that for everything else, every other temptation, but money, they throw at us. And if you're looking at the other side, from the, in a sense of trying to prove ourselves and to work harder in order to evolve, since the wealth is also one of the hardest. So if you think about that's supposed to be the one that, you know, as you João mentioned, we're supposed to be more riches on the planet than poor, because that's the hardest one. That's was supposed to be the one that's going to elevate us. So I don't know why. I can't make sense. And either way you look at, to the bad or the good, the wealthy doesn't make any sense. Why we don't have that more often? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, let me invite Julio here so we have a different point of view here. So, you know, because I feared I'm going to start repeating myself here. So, Julio.
So just summarize quickly, João, the point that Renato is trying to make, because I got a little confused. So,
yeah, he's saying that if being wealthy is one of the hardest trials, why not a lot of people are wealthy then? Because a lot of people will face the hardest trial. And again, I mentioned before, if we had more wealthy rich people than poor people, then the distribution would be easier and we would become lazy. That was the point that I was going to repeat. So that's why
exactly.
Because otherwise I was going to repeat myself.
But also on the I put a mention on the lower spirits that try to tempt us, make us fail. Since the rich is the hardest one, shouldn't they be trying to get us rich so we fail miserably, not being poor, and try to redeem ourselves?
I think this is complicated because we have to understand that what is hard for us is what we have not experienced yet. What is hard for us in any form of experience is that which we have not yet experienced. If I have already gone through some reincarnation processes as a poor person, the hardest thing that can happen to me now is go to the other extreme, because I now have experience through poverty, but I have no clue how to behave when I will have abundance. The converse is also correct. If I have always been rich and I have done and learned from it, now when I experience poverty, that is what is going to be the hardest for me. So the concept of being the hardest is it's very personal, I would say. It's what we don't know that is going to be the hardest thing. The idea that we should all experience abundance and wealth, for instance, well, yes, we should all experience in some way or another most of the different conditions in life, but there is a practicality to it. If we are talking about abundance, it means that if we have now wealth, it means that someone else or other people are going to have less. And we cannot have everyone wealthy at the same time. So it's just a question of practicality. That's all. And the practicality, you know, the way we are going to rotate and see when it's my turn, it's basically what we have already experienced. If I'm still failing in poverty, there is no point in trying to go for another trial and a type of trial, because I have not even passed this one that I'm going through right now, or in the past few reincarnation processes. Everything happens based on what we already know and what we want to address in our evolutionary process, morally and intellectually. If now I'm failing in condition A, until I pass, I get a good grade in condition A, there is no point in trying to divide myself, my strength, my courage, and address condition B, C, or D. Whether this is wealth to poverty or poverty to wealth, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what I have already acquired experience in and what I still have to learn in the future. or even in this reincarnation. We have a special attachment to wealth simply because we have this idea that it provides everything for us, which is true up to a point, but it's exactly what Soraya was saying. Be careful what you wish for, because most of us fail it. The temptations are just too great.
So, you know, I'm going to give you guys some statistics here because I think it's important also. We're discussing wealthy and poor, and we are really talking about extremes here, extremely wealth and extremely poor. And let's remember that the vast majority are neither extremely wealth, neither extremely poor, right? But for you guys to have an idea, if we divided the different classes of wealth or lack of wealth in the world in 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning 1 are the very poor and 4 are the rich, not the 1%. I'm talking about people that have good life conditions, meaning you can have your own car, you can have your own apartment. So, and 2 and 3, 2 are you came out of basic poverty and you can have your first first things that you can consume. So from 1 to 4, right? 200 years ago, 85% of the population of the world lived on 1. And the 15% was divided between 2, 3, and 4. This is 200 years ago. 50 years ago, 30% lived on 1 and 70% on 2, 3, and 4. Now, today, last statistic, 2017, less than 10% of the world live in 1. It's 10% live in 4, less than 10% in 1, and 2 and 3 are divided. So extreme poverty, which is 1 is really extreme poverty, when you have to leave your house and walk 1 kilometer to get water, 1 mile to get water, that you don't have any electricity or things like that, right? This was 85%. Now it's less than 10%. So we are evolving as never before in terms of material possessions, in terms of well-being. But of course, we don't remember, if we were alive 200 years ago, we don't remember, right? Our struggles, because we went through it and we don't remember our previous incarnations. Some of us that are a little bit older will remember from 30, 40, 50 years ago. But we never, humanity as a whole was never so wealthy as it is today, believe it or not. So it's important to put in perspective, because we are all moving upwards together in terms of material possessions and material being wealthy. Now, in terms of moral elevation is where sometimes we stay behind, like the spirits tell us. So there is where sometimes we have to be shaken individually, collectively, you name it, so we can try to go back to basics and try to readjust ourselves to the moral and intellectual evolution. Okay.
Thanks, guys. A+. You just free up a soul here.
Okay. That anything else on fatalism? We are fatally removing us from that item.
Okay.
We're going to come back very shortly, because after foreknowledge of the future, we go back to a kind of we resume it all, but that's going to be probably next week. So foreknowledge of the future, which is another subject that people love to talk about, right? Can we predict the future? Can we guarantee the future? Okay, read the first couple.
Okay. Can the future be revealed to human beings? As a rule, the future is hidden from them. It is only in rare and exceptional cases that God permits it to be revealed. Why is the future hidden from human beings? If they knew the future, they would ignore the present and would not act with the same freedom. They will be swayed by the thought that if a specific event is to happen, there is no need to worry about it, or they would seek to prevent it. God did not want it to be this way, so that all people would contribute in the accomplishment of God's designs, even those designs they would want to prevent. Therefore, you often prepare the way for the events that occur over the course of your lifetime, without even being aware of it.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's talk about foreknowledge of the future. And the first thing is something that I said many times in class, and many of you heard many times. How can we predict the future, right? You go to the top of a mountain, you see a car coming on the road, and you see a big hole. And you say, the car is going to fall into the hole. You are predicting the future. The car brakes before it reaches the hole and has to go back to be rescued or whatever. So I was wrong in my prediction of the future because something else happened. The car didn't brake and went ahead and fell into the hole. I predicted the future. That's how you can predict the future, but it depends on other things. Now, if I'm going to predict that my physical body is going to die, I'm 100% sure of that prediction. When is a different story. But so some things we know. We all know that we are going to get older each day that goes on, that we're going to be older tomorrow than today. That's a prediction of the future. We all know that our physical body is going to deteriorate slowly. Now, we want predictions that solve problems for us and relieve us from having to work hard or worry. And again, because we are still imperfect spirits, and because we always want to blame others, to lean on others, to have others to solve our issues for us, that's why we are so interested in going to the psychics and the fortune tellers, so they can tell for us what's going to happen in our future, and we'll be more in peace or more worried, or even worried sick. So again, it's very important to understand the divine law is perfect. So if you ask, does God knows about our future? Well, God knows the beginning, the middle, the end, everything, because God is perfect. But we don't understand God in that sense. It's very hard for us to even entertain the concept of knowing everything. But going back to the basic attribute that we have and that we acquire and develop during our evolution, which is the free will. So because of free will, the future cannot be written in stone. It can be open for us to see the possibilities, yes. So there is, we are going through a road and there is a bifurcation, and we would like to know what happens if we choose one side or another side. There'll be two different outcomes. If we could see the future, it make it easier for us to choose, but we'll have no merit in the choices we make. So that will destroy the very reason for us to progress, is to merit the achievements we conquer. Okay? I know it's a interesting subject, but we have to understand. First, we have to understand the concept, the very basic concept of foreknowledge of the future, and how the future works, depending on free will and what we just studied, fatalism. So, yes, we are all going to die, the physical body. We are all going back to the spiritual world, we spirits. That's fatalism. There's foreknowledge of the future. But beyond that, it's not really written in stone. Okay, comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm curious about something. I don't know if you guys watch, there's a movie called The Time Machine. It's a sci-fi movie. Pretty much the guy invent a time machine because his loved one died. And he's trying to change the filter, but he can't, because the reason why he invented the time machines was because she died. So there's a paradox there. And, you know, took the 2 hours, the movie, for him to understand. So my point is, when I see the answer from the spirit saying that if we see the future, we would prevent it or change it or do nothing, I'm trying to understand, because let's say that that was possible, and in a particular point in time, I see my future. So that particular time that I'm seeing my future is already, whatever I'm seeing is already a result of the action that I'm taking, meaning even me seeing my future is already in my story. So there is no way for me to change or do nothing or predict, because even the fact I'm seeing the future is already my timeline. So I'm not quite sure how could we do anything differently, even though we see the future.
Yeah, because we see the future, but the future, there is no guarantee that that future will happen. Okay, that's the point. When what we think about seeing the future is seeing the future as a guaranteed outcome of what's going to happen to us, and we cannot guarantee the outcome. Think about the roads, the 2 roads, different roads that you can take. So you are going to see the future if you that would happen if you take one direction, but if you choose the other one, then the future would not happen. So you cannot guarantee that what you saw is really going to happen, because the outcome always depends on our free will. So someone say that you know, you are going to guarantee you that you are going to die in a car accident, right? Okay, you never enter in your car again the rest of your life. So not going to happen, right? Again, it's a silly example, but it's how the future works. There is never a guarantee, right? Not even the time of your death. Some people dream about the time of their death, or the event of their death, or they see it. It may not happen. It may happen. It may not happen, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that, because I was thinking more of everything that you said the second before. So that's the line of think I was having, even though you know, it's said in, you know, to happen or not. Let's say if we put like in God's view, just for the sake of the example, He would already foresee it, that we would see the future, and whatever choice we choose, avoid or not, And for our perspective, it might seem that we change or whatever, but for the overall perspective, it didn't change, because the simple fact that we saw the predict or change or whatever was already in our destiny or whatever you call it. But you know, I don't have base for that. I need to digest that.
Let me try to give you an example, because we talk about God knowing knowing the future. We have to try to understand God is very hard, right? But you play chess?
Yes, I do.
So you know that if you are really a good chess player, you can predict what's going to happen if your opponent makes one move or another move. You can predict 10 different options, or some can predict 30 different options that can happen, right?
Right.
Depending on the moves he makes. So if we can do that, imagine God. God can predict and see 1 million billion different options that will happen according to our free will, because God, being perfect and eternal, has all the possibilities. So that's how God knows the future, but the future for you is not guaranteed. You got the idea?
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Makes more sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Think of amplify a master in chess to God, if it's possible, and you see, you know, God can see all the outcomes possible. So you make one move, God see all the outcomes. You make a different move, God see all the outcomes. So he sees the future, yes, but doesn't mean that it's going to happen one way or another. Depends on your movement.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? Okay.
Okay.
Let's go 870.
870. Since there is a practical reason why the future is hidden, why does God sometimes permit it to be revealed? Because in such cases, this foreknowledge facilitates the accomplishment of what is to be, rather than hinder it by making the persons to whom it is revealed act in a different manner than they would otherwise act. In addition, it is often a trial. The prospect of an event may awaken more or less honorable thoughts. For example, if individuals learn that they will receive an inheritance that they had not expected, they may be tempted by greed, by elation at the prospect of increasing their worldly pleasures, or by a desire for the death of their benefactor, so that they may obtain it sooner. On the other hand, this prospect may awaken good and generous thoughts in them. If the prediction is not fulfilled, it is a test of how they bear disappointment. They acquire the merit or reproach of the good or bad thoughts they have by their expectation of the event anticipated.
Okay. So let us bring that down to the very basics. You go to a psychic that is going to give you, predict your future. So why does God sometimes permit it to be revealed? So that's the case, right? You go to a psychic, you're looking to know what's going to be your future. Why does God would allow? God is perfect. God doesn't allow anything, or God doesn't prevent anything. Everything follows the natural laws. So we have our free will. The psychic decided that she or he had the ability to see the future, and you know, if let's say we go to one that is more or less serious, and they give you and he or she gives you the prediction of what's going to happen in your life. What are you going to do with that? And again, everything that is given to you then will always depend on how you act on it, on your choices. Again, you think about the chess game again. Depends on what move you make. There are different consequences, and they are all each consequence, it's there written in stone, but it all depends on your moves. So if you are told that you are going to inherit money from an uncle that you never heard before, you may be tempted by greed, or you may be happy and start planning for how you are going to be helping others with the money, and then, you know, when it comes, you are going to make the choices that you decided or not. Or maybe the uncle dies, and but you are not the chosen one to receive the fortune. So how do you bear disappointment? That's what the spirits are trying to tell us here. So we may have glimpses, or we may have predictions of our future. We may see ourselves, the predictions, in dreams or in out-of-body experiences or things like that. But they are never a guarantee that it's going to happen, and our free will always will play a part on it. Again, it is the part here God sometimes allows it to be revealed. It's the natural law. We are curious about the future, so we try to find shortcuts to predict the future, and we have been doing this forever, right? The ancient Greeks will go to the how is it called, the Delphi Oracle to hear about their future, right? So we've been doing this forever, and we talk a lot about Nostradamus, that 600 years ago wrote a bunch of things that we decide to interpret according to our convenience, to say that he was predicting the future, and maybe he was, but again, you know, for those of you that are a little bit older, if you remember when we were children watching the Jetsons, the cartoon, right? A lot of predictions there of the future, and some of them happened and some of them did not. Were we able to predict the future then? Someone was predicting the future right there, and some things happened, some things did not. So it is possible, it happens, but the important thing is, what can we learn from it? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. If some prediction comes to us, on what can we learn from that prediction? How can I take advantage of it? How can I use it to my benefit and to the benefit of others? Okay.
Hey, João, those small things that happens in our daily lives, like when you have a feeling that someone's gonna call you, then they call you, or you're doing stuff throughout your day and you have the feeling, oh, I've done this before, or I've been here before, this kind of stuff. Does that falls on this perceiving the future category as well?
Depends. So when you are thinking of someone and that person calls you, it's more related to your thoughts being matter and thoughts being energy, and connecting your thoughts with the thoughts of that person. And so that person is thinking about you thinking about that person, and then the person calls you. So that's less prediction of the future and more, it has more to do with our thoughts that are matter. And you know, talking about thoughts, on Saturday we are going to have a very interesting lecture by promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, by a quantum scientist, Dr. Rejane Planner. Thoughts, a driving force, scientific, philosophic, and moral aspects. So talking about thoughts, let's invite you all on Saturday, 11 a.m. to listen to the lecture. It's going to be through the United States Spiritist Federation Facebook or YouTube pages. So now you are practicing yourself to go to our YouTube channel on Sunday to watch the lecture that we are going to have with Álvaro Mordecai here. You can start on Saturday by watching the lecture by Dr. Rejane Planner on thoughts. And I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. I saw her PowerPoint presentation and it's very interesting. I'm really curious to see it. So again, but going back to Renato. So, we may have some inklings of what's going to happen to us, sixth sense, if you want to call it that, which can happen and cannot. Again, it's always a possibility, right? But you have to separate what's our connections with the spiritual world and connections with spirits or with the incarnate beings through our thought process, and really what's the prediction or foreknowledge of the future. Did I answer, Renato? Yes?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? We have 2 minutes left, so I'm not going to go to the next question. If anyone has anything else to comment.
Could you just repeat? I didn't understand that there's a YouTube both Saturday and Sunday.
Yes. So, okay. So let's go to Saturday and Sunday now. We have 2 lectures this weekend. Saturday, the United States Spiritist Federation is having a lecture with Dr. Rejane Planner that is called, as I told you guys, Thoughts, a Driving Force. That is at 11 a.m. Saturday, Eastern Time, through YouTube. You have to go to YouTube and look for the page of the United States Spiritist Federation, and you'll find it starting at 11 a.m. Okay? On Sunday, we have SGNY has a lecture by Álvaro Mordecai. He's a Spiritist speaker that he used to be an Orthodox Jew that studied, he's Brazilian, but he spent like 4 or 5 years in Israel studying the Hebrew traditions and laws and everything. So he brings the Hebrew knowledge to Spiritism in a way that I haven't seen anyone else bring. And he's going to talk to us about the first 2 commandments of the Mosaic Law. So he's going to bring the comparison with the Mosaic, the 2 first commandments of Moses, and the Gospel according to Spiritism, the relation and how we can connect each other. So that lecture will be on Sunday at 11 a.m., our regular study time. So, but instead of Zoom, you are going to go to the Spiritist Group of New York YouTube page. That today's Thursday, so you have 2 Friday, Saturday to practice. Go there, look for YouTube. When you are on YouTube, you search Spiritist Group of New York. Don't do SGNY because you go to a different website, a different group. It's Spiritist Group of New York. But if you are receiving the email from Thais, there is a link on the email that goes directly to our page. And there we will have the lecture on Sunday at 11 a.m. Anyone has any doubts about it? No? You should subscribe to both pages, because then you'll be notified when there is anything going on. And all these study groups that we are having are going there. I'm posting all these studies there on the Spiritist Group of New York YouTube page. So if you missed any of our studies, you can go there and listen to it again. And if you missed last Sunday, it was a very interesting discussion that we had about sex with the book In the Greater World. And you also find Julio's lecture from the beginning of the month, and other lectures that we posted there. Okay, are we good? Anyone has any doubts?
I have a question, João.
Sure, Elmo.
With our financial contribution to the center, how should it proceed now, since most of us would bring a check to the center?
You know, it's a very good point. You know, I was thinking about talking about it. Carol already made her donation through PayPal. You can do it through PayPal. You just have to, it's one of the forms. You can mail the check to me if you want, if you prefer, or you can wait until we come back to the center and give me the checks. Of course, it's been hard for all of us, but our group has the means of keep paying the rent for, you know, for a couple of months without going under. So we will survive, but of course, all those that can help, help is always appreciated. So you can go to our webpage, and there is a link there, donations, and you click on donations and you make your donation there. Okay? Any questions on that? It's a good point, Elmo.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a question on that, but back to the YouTube. So is that live or
Yes.
both recorded? Oh, so is there opportunities like to ask questions during that?
Yes, what I'm going to on the lecture on Sunday. On Saturday, I don't know, because it's the United States Spiritist Federation. I'm not sure how they're going to do. But on Sunday, I'm going to ask you guys, and I'll be there presenting him, and I'm going to ask you guys to send me questions through you know, WhatsApp or Messenger or email, because I'll be looking at it and then I'll read the questions to him. It's not a Zoom type of platform that allows people to ask questions directly, but it is possible, you know, that you can ask the questions through other forms of communication, and I'll receive the questions and I'll read to Alvaro by the end of the lecture. And he's expecting questions. The lecture will be probably between 40 minutes to an hour, and then we'll have time for questions. So please try to, you know, you can send questions through the Facebook messengers, to WhatsApp Messenger, through the iMessage, and I'll be looking for that. Okay. Okay, I think we're okay, right? Yeah. Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, I'd be glad to. All right, everyone, please take a deep breath. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we are grateful for the opportunity to be together this evening to receive the teachings and the blessings and the unifying thoughts that we have as a group. We are truly grateful to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors, and all those who are here to raise and elevate consciousness, our thoughts, and to open our hearts. We are grateful that we have received the blessings of these teachings this evening about fatalism and about predictive future. We know that we are aligned with these principles. Therefore, may we continue to hold them deeply within our hearts and minds. We humbly ask for the Christ consciousness to be received within us, that we may also use this to serve others through charity, kindness, and through greater awareness. As we conclude this portion of our meeting tonight, May we be reminded to continue with our prayers, with our studies, with our mindfulness, especially during these times. We are grateful for the safety and protection which we have received throughout the week, and we will continue to receive going forward. And as we close now, may we be reminded to be beacons of light, sharing with our family, friends, others, and co-workers during this time. Go forth now in peace. Go forth now in peace. So be it.